I actually found out that's very interesting. You have quite an what I would say as a non-traditional beginning as an artist. So the question that I want to ask is like, how do you see yourself as an artist maybe in 5 to 10 years time?
That's a really good question. I think some of the things that I'm doing right now is a little bit different to what people expect, even in comics. Right now I'm working on a book called Small Shed, and it's a mix between prose and comics. So in a way, unlike picture books where you have a text and then you have pictures that may or may not have anything to do with the story, the actual progression of the story itself, I wanted to find a way to integrate prose with comic pictures, so that it reads as a single kind of coherent narrative through the story. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing with this book right now, and it's been quite fun. So while I'm definitely still be doing comics, if all things allowed, in the next 5 years, this has been a very interesting development for me, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I might do more of that in the future.
In a couple of your books, like the one right here, The Dreaming and The Heart of Odd, it is a very heavy underlying tone of supernatural. So what drawn you to this genre? Are you specifically drawn to this supernatural genre or theme?
I like to do fantasy the most, actually, and I think if you're talking about the general kind of genre feel, I think fantasy would also include supernatural. The supernatural, things that are different from our everyday life. And I draw in all different kinds of genres. I really like it, but I think I also have an appreciation for the dark side. For drawing fantasy, for me, you get to draw so many amazing things, that may or may not exist in real life, and sometimes they can't exist in real life, even if you're talking about a movie with special effects. And I really like doing the art in that. And so that's one thing. The other thing is I started off reading horror, and I wanted to write my own horror stories. Like not necessarily the kind of stuff where gore spews across the corridors, which is very popular in movies these days. And I guess where I come from is more from a more literary background. So I read guys like H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe, and I love them. And I feel that visually speaking, these kind of stories, if it was in Hollywood, they'll just ham it up to the nines. And I wish that if you're going to tell a horror story visually, people could just scale back on that sort of thing and tell it from a different kind of spookier perspective, because I think there's a real audience for that as well. You can't neglect an entire chunk of people who prefer a different kind of horror, and that's the kind of horror I like.
If you have to choose one of your work to be made into film, which one would that be?
I would say The Dreaming. Interestingly enough, Odd Thomas is actually a movie right now. I think they've already filmed it, and it's in post-production right now. But The Dreaming was actually written with a movie in mind. Because when I first started working for Tokyo Pop, the company that published The Dreaming, they told me, 3 volumes and that's all you have, right? That's how they just hand out their book contracts in kind of books of 3. So I thought to myself, I got to tell a single story in the space of these 3 volumes. How am I going to do it? And I figured out almost immediately, because I'm quite a movie buff myself, that the 3-volume format fits into a single movie, a single 2-hour movie really well. And my style is very cinematic, and because that's what I like, and I feel it works perfectly great. So I thought, well, if I imagine this single story as a movie, how would it play out through these 3 books? And that was how The Dreaming was written.
Talking about your main source of inspiration, who are they or what are they?
I have a lot of inspirations, really. I prefer not to get inspiration from comics or manga, because I feel that if you work in a particular industry, you shouldn't cannibalize your co-workers or anything like that. I feel that to get a fresh perspective in your own work, you should look to other mediums and see what other people are doing and get ideas from that. So I tend to get most of my ideas from books or movies and video gaming, all these things that I do and I love. And I feel that that's really helped me have a fresh perspective on things. Especially when it comes to original work. A lot of people ask, so where do you get your ideas from? It's like, well, sometimes it's everyday life, but other times it's you don't want to rehash ideas you get from comic books, because then it's very derivative. Even if it's an idea that's been done in movies these days, if you do a comic book or a manga take on it, it can seem fresh, even though it might not be the freshest thing on the shelf.
If you have the options to rewrite a comic book character, who would that be? I mean, like in those mainstream comic book characters, who would that be and why?
That's a really interesting question. I'm not really familiar with a lot of the more mainstream superhero characters, but if I were going to choose one, it would probably be Rogue from X-Men, because of her powers. You know, her powers is like sapping powers from other people, and this is seen as a superpower, and which it is, to be honest. It's any kind of power that's unusual. But Rogue, I think I haven't read much of her story. I do know her only from the X-Men movie, but I think she'll make quite an interesting. If you do an interesting spin on her power, depict it differently. I think there's a good story to be told that are not very superhero-y in that. More like the people around her and the power that she saps. Like most of the people around her, like Storm, for example, she zaps her power, then she can zap people, right? But these are kind of elemental powers. I mean, when you're talking about systems of magic that I like to think about every now and then, if you surround Rogue with a completely different bunch of people, with a different bunch of powers that are not elemental, or maybe some different kind of system of magic that works differently, she can become a whole new different person. You know, the powers that she saps could be very, very different, and the way she uses them can be very, very different. I mean, she's currently an X-Men character, and that's what she hangs around, you know, that's these people she hangs around, right? But if you put her in a different universe with a completely different system of magic, who would she be? You know, that's my interesting, like, that's what I find interesting about her as a character. She's in a way a kind of, someone who is, well, I wouldn't say chameleon, you know, but she needs to be able to blend in with her surroundings. I mean, that's one way of seeing her powers, in that she doesn't really do anything except, I wouldn't say steal, but borrow people's powers. So she's a character that's very much affected by her environment.
What are the current projects that you're working on, and any future collaboration that we need to be aware of?
Okay, well, this week, House of Odd, that's a collaboration with Dean Koontz, just came out in the US, and I met somebody at the convention who already had a book, and I was like, wow, how'd you get that? You know, but they had it, you know, so that's out now. That's my current book. I'm working on a book called Small Shen right now. That's a collaboration with an author called Kylie Chan. She's a fantasy author, and she did a Chinese fantasy series called White Tiger, and it sold very well, and she's on book 7 right now, and she's written a prequel, and what I'm doing with the prequel is that I'm mixing prose with comics, as in I have a completed script from her of the book itself, and I'm going to turn parts of it into a certain kind of comic/prose kind of hybrid. Yeah, so that'll be out at the end of this year, and it's called Small Shen.
So, is there anything that you would like to tell the world, like you know, that about Queenie that is still, you know, that most people don't know about?
Oh. I don't think so. I'm actually a pretty private person, so while there's lots of things you don't know about me, I'm not sure I'm willing to share these with the whole universe as of now. Right? So, well, you can know from my website that I have a lot of hobbies, at least when it comes to sewing and things like that. So I can tell you that I really love to crochet stuff. So if you go to my website at queeniechan.com, you can see what I like to crochet in my spare time. Let's face it, it's pretty girly. I like soft toys. I like, you know, cute little cakes and things like that. Yeah, a lot of people visit that part of the site, and I found that some of them have become interested in comics and what I do as well through that.
If you could have one superpower, what would that be and why?
I might have to think for a while about that. I was going to say something really predictable, like being able to fly or something like that. Yeah. But maybe, this is going to sound strange, maybe the ability to see into the distant past, but not the distant future. When I think about powers like prophecy and all that, I always think they're more of a curse than a blessing. Like if you see the path, your path, not just your path, maybe other people's path as well, in front of them, and sometimes it's a matter of whether you believe in predestination or not. If you believe in predestination, it means that if you see them die in some horrible way, there's really nothing you can do to stop them, or you see yourself die in some horrible way, then you know that you will die that way because it's predetermined and predestined. So oddly enough, that's a power that I don't really want, you know, to see into the future, even though people would think that it's a good power, but I don't think so. I'd rather leave life open as it is. But to see in the distant past, I'm a big history buff. I really love history, you know, and I think what is past is what is safe. As it's gone, it's happened, we can accept it. Okay, and so I don't think that seeing in the distant past is going to hurt anybody or make my life a living hell. But it will be really interesting because there's lots of fun things that happened in the past. You know, you can go to different kinds of wars and see what actually happened, because history always tells a story of the victors. You know, whoever wins the war gets to write history, and that's the truth throughout all of history. That if you are on the losing side, then your side of history never gets told, and I think that's a real misfortune. You know, and I really want to see what the history of the losers in history is like, because everyone's got an interesting story. And if things have turned out just a little bit differently sometimes, yeah, they would be the ones who's writing history. Because I don't want to turn into a superhero and have to fight supervillains, let's face it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would rather be an anthropologist, and a very successful one, you know.
Most of the artists will suffer from artist block. Do you have a remedy for that?
I write as well as draw, so I've not had artist block problems. I have had other people ask me about writer's block. I say the best thing to do is to get away from that scary blank piece of paper, because if you can't draw anything, you're sitting there won't make you want to draw anything. You just turn out work that's mediocre. I think artist block in a way is kind of burnout, maybe, knowing that you've been doing something for too long. You need something fresh, something different, just to get away from that drawing table. So my number one recommendation would be just get out of that room, go outside and do something you've never done before. You know, whether it's a scream at someone in the street or whatever, you know, or maybe every time you walk to the shops you take a different route. You know, that's one possibility. So take a completely different route, or maybe join up for a class or something and do something you've never done before. Something like that. I think it'll, even if it doesn't help you get over the writer's block, it'll give you a new experience to enjoy, yeah, and share.